Now, this is for those of you who don't know, this is the second part of a two-part series. Ferris came and talked to us about a month ago. So this is the sequel to his introductory talk. But let me tell you a little bit about Ferris. He's a big deal. He's a serial entrepreneur. And his interesting story goes that he started off, he got a layoff notice from a telecom startup that he joined right after moving to Silicon Valley. And then he didn't look back. And 20 years later, he's a seasoned serial entrepreneur. He's founded and scaled seven businesses, including an eight-figure digital marketing consultancy that he sold in 2019 to Dentsu, who is a global advertising giant in Japan. Um, he's big into consulting. He's advised over 150 founders, and he has this current venture called Startup with Ferris, which has, by the way, so you're hearing him live tonight, but I definitely recommend checking out his Startup with Ferris videos online. You'll get a taste of that tonight. But they're really high quality videos that he uses to reach out to people, entrepreneurs, and show them how to do business. He's on a mission to help entrepreneurs in the consulting and services space start and grow smarter and stronger. He's an author, a speaker, a board member, and near and dear to my heart, a fourth degree black belt in Aikido, which is the way of harmonious energy. Maybe he'll talk about harmonious energy tonight. And he's got a lifelong dedication to nonprofits, which continues to be a core part of his professional journey. And then on a personal side, when he's not working, he enjoys time with his family, hiking, listening to audiobooks, of course, practicing his Aikido, and volunteering. So, um, let us all give a warm welcome, or a welcome back, I should say, to Feras Alhlou, who's going to talk to you about sales funnel issues in the startup world.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I appreciate it. And thanks for the NDNU community. I'm glad to be back. And I know we had a very active and engaged conversation last time. So looking forward to do the same tonight. So the title of tonight's webinar is Sales Funnels Fundamentals. So I thought I would give you some stories from when I started early on. As Jordan mentioned, I was a VP actually at a startup. We raised $96 million, ran out of money, couldn't sell the infrastructure product that we were developing. So the CEO walked into the office and said, "Hey, Ferris, tomorrow we have a layoff and you are impacted." Still, every time I think about what happened, it evokes emotions and all sort of things. And I know we're hearing about waves of layoffs in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. So if yourself or someone else is impacted, actually, as Jordan mentioned, on the website, startupwithferris.com, and also on the YouTube channel, I have a lot of resources for those who are laid off. So reach out if you're looking for any specific help or support in transitioning. But for tonight, we're talking about entrepreneurship, we're talking about sales, and I have four areas I want to cover. One is lead capture, one is lead nurture, one is about the sales funnel, the sales funnels, the topic, the title of tonight's topic, and then how to build that sales funnel. So I have, talking about AI, I had to use AI and show you all the muscles that I can get with AI. I'm not a gym topic. I do work out, but not as much as some of the folks who go to the gym every other day. So I figured, well, we'll use a gi, a martial art gi here about the sales muscle and that energy that we want to create. So in terms of starting out, so some of you might be new to sales, some of you might have done sales before, but I know when I was laid off, I was exposed to corporate sales and marketing, but I was in charge of professional services. So we deliver products, we delivered solutions to our clients. So never had to sell anything till I was laid off. And then myself and a co-founder, we decided to start this business. And this was back in 2003. And we said, you know what? This thing called internet, this thing called websites seems to be cutting edge. Let's sell websites to small businesses. So we were knocking on doors here in Santa Clara and elsewhere in the Bay Area, trying to convince these small business owners to why they need a website. And I mean, now it's silly that we mentioned this, or maybe it sounds like, what are you talking about? But in 2003, people just didn't know. Small business owners had no idea. Why would I spend money on this? I'm not a big company. I don't need it. I don't sell things online, any of that. So we struggled a lot. It took us 6, 7, 8 weeks, I think 7 weeks till we landed our very first client after a lot of rejections, a lot of learning, also a lot of delaying that phase of the business where you have to put all the plans behind you, all the financial plans, the business plans, the vision. You have to put all this behind you and go out and now knock on doors, physically or virtually. So we did that, and then we ended up landing this very first client in Santa Clara called Athena Grill. It's a still thriving restaurant in Santa Clara on Scott and close to Santa Mas. So the lady, the owner, believed in us and said, yes, I will buy this website from you. And she wrote us this amazing, this beautiful $700 check, the 50% of the $1,400 deal that I closed. And it's a moment I cherished because it was a validation that I could sell, that yes, we have something here that we can convince other people to buy from us, and we can help them with their branding, with their website, with their business. So that was my very first sale after a whole lot of rejections for 7 weeks. And then, as I always say, the next victim, it took us 3 months to deliver a 4-page basic website, but we had no idea what we were doing. There was no WordPress, none of that stuff. The next victim was my dentist. She was kind enough to also believe in us and buy this website. And now we were such smart and polished salespeople. We figured we'd double the price or raise the price by 50%. So we sold the second website for $2,000. So we felt very good about it. Again, it took us now 2 months, not 3 months, to deliver a basic 5-page website. But along the way, I was trying to get my hand on anything that's sales related. And remember, 2003, 2004, not a whole lot of YouTube videos on sales. So I took some sales courses. I read books on sales. I talked to people. One of the sales coaches, Marvin, great guy, still a friend, said, go and network with people who sell things similar to you, learn from them. So I did all of that. That was a really busy period for me to absorb a lot about sales. So in one of those conversations, one of the sales trainers said, Feras, if you want to build a solid business, you have to have recurring revenue. So what is recurring revenue? He said, well, you figure out a way to package some services you offer so that you can bill monthly for it. And if you get $100 a month from 10 clients, that's $1,000 a month coming to you month in, month out. So I like that idea a lot. So what do? We build websites. Well, we figured out we can add content to these websites. We can do newsletters. So we started to sell the website and then sell an ongoing package after that. And our top recurring revenue at the time was from a restaurant, another one here, for $100 a month. And I think it cost us like 10 hours to make that money, because we'd have to go and visit the guy and show him what is it that you want to update this month, collect information, pictures, take pictures on his behalf, back and forth, go another time to collect the $100. But you know what? We had nothing else to do, but we made this guy super happy, and he referred us to the owner to another business. So that was good from just investing in that relationship. Later, I learned that, Feras, what are you doing selling $2,000 websites? You got to sell larger projects. You got to sell more elaborate websites. I said, sure. Okay. So with that growth mindset, as Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, said, life is about growth. You grow or you die. So let's sell bigger websites. So we got ourselves into selling complex portals. We sold one for a city in Arizona, very complex portal for the whole city. And then we sold another one for $16,500 to build a matrimonial website. And that was probably one of the most complex things I've seen. And we ended up, that was, to me, I was cloud nine. I sold a $16,500 deal. That was a big deal. What we didn't know is that these complex these these high value websites, they're very hard to implement because you have to build everything from scratch. Again, there were no WordPress, there were no modules, e-commerce modules at the time. So we ended up learning the hard way that you have to have the proper requirements. You have to get a lot of details from the clients. You have to allocate time for managing project management, this relationship between the client, you, and then we had a third party vendor building these websites for us. So long story short, we lost our shirt on these big projects. So that was another learning, that if you want to do this kind of business, you have to study it, understand how these complex websites are sold and bought. And then later, as we started to specialize and focus on online marketing and then on digital analytics, and became very good at what we did after many years, a lot of scars, trust me. It took us 7 years or so to get to seven figures. A lot of the stuff you see on YouTube, on social media, you can get $20,000 a month overnight. You can become a millionaire with this hack or this other approach. It doesn't work. A lot of hard work is required to get to seven figures, especially in services and in consulting. But we learned as we became better at what we did, and we became Google certified partners in analytics and a few other things at the time. So we started to charge $250 an hour, and at times higher than that. And we did really well, and that led us to also start working with beyond just mid-sized businesses. We went after the Fortune 1000, the Fortune 500, ended up with clients like Google, Salesforce, and some of the world's most recognized brands in our niche of digital analytics. So, and then we ended up doing some work for the government, and became the number one provider for analytics for the government with six-figure contracts, multi-year six-figure contracts. So that whole journey took from 2003 to 2000, and I think 13, 14, almost 10 years to get to that level. But there were a lot of milestones along the way where we learned a lot about sales. The way to sell to a small business owner is completely different the way you want to sell to a mid-sized business, and also to an enterprise or to the government. So that's a bit of the journey. A lot of learning, a lot of rejections, a lot of failures. The idea here is that as an entrepreneur, which is really a good segue for one of my favorite definition of entrepreneurship is that you're pursuing novel opportunity while lacking resources. And that's in sales. You don't have, and most of us, when we start into entrepreneurship, 68% of founders, you don't have sales and marketing. You don't have a sales and marketing background. So you lack resources. You might not have a budget to run ads. You might not have a budget to hire people. So you don't have skills, hard skills, soft skills. Maybe your network is not that wide yet, or large yet. So you're trying to do something new, maybe not something new to others, but for you it's something new, and you're pursuing this, and you're building from the ground up while lacking resources. So I think the reason I want to emphasize this point before we get into lead capture and nurture and sales funnel is that if we understand this concept about entrepreneurship, I think we have a hard chance of succeeding, because we're not going to burn out and we're not going to quit. We can pivot. We can try different markets, different services. We can go up market, down market. There are a lot of things we can do. But if we understand the difficult path ahead of us, especially initially as you're building the foundation, if you know that this is a hard work, we get into it, I think, with a different mindset and expectations, and the energy level and all of that is higher. Whereas if you come in and say, you know what, it's easy, I can get to six figures in 3 months, and then you go and it takes you a year, you might even quit before you get there. So that's why you see all these numbers and all this success. There was a lot of hard work, a lot of long nights, a lot of weekends put into this. And again, one thing I would say before I jump into the meat of today's presentation is I used to get this question. I get this question all the time. What do you think about entrepreneurship? Should I do it? I used to say, yes, go for it. Yes, it's hard work, but it pays off. Over time, as you get older and maybe a little bit wiser, I qualify my answer, I say, yes, entrepreneurship worked out really well for me. Um, Not just the financial side of it, but also the teams that you work with, especially if you're choosy about who you have with you, and you find some A players, you have long term and lifelong friendships. So the culture that you create, that it's your own culture, like your own DNA, that becomes the company culture. So there are a lot of, obviously the reputation, the success, the financial aspect of it, the financial independence, all of these are great things about entrepreneurship. But what I now say is that I wanted to make sure that you are fully aware of the road ahead. You don't have to follow my own journey. Everybody will have their own journey, but I can share a map with you. I can tell you what went through, you know, through my mind and through, my time and effort and energy when I was going through this journey. But I want you to be aware of what's ahead, and also find a season in your life when it makes sense for you to do this. So if you're going through a lot of difficulties and challenges at home, and you just don't have, aside from time, you don't have the mental space to commit to this, maybe this is not the time. Maybe wait a month or two, take care of these things that are serious things that maybe you have to deal with, and then focus on entrepreneurship. It's really hard to build something that is worthwhile and something that's great with just working part-time at it, or with just being distracted by others. You need a lot of energy, a lot of focus on what you are building. So enough on that, and let's jump into lead capture, lead nurture, and all that good stuff about sales. And by the way, if you have any questions, I will pause after I have 4 sections. After each section, and I'd love to hear from you about your questions and about what's going on through your mind about sales, and your experience, and maybe some specific scenarios you're going through. I'd love to hear from you, and then try to help and answer. So from a sales perspective, a lot of us who don't have sales background, and I speak to 2 to 3 founders on a weekly basis, we think of sales as what we maybe see on TV, the sales, the used car salesperson. We think of sales as a dirty word. We think of sales as something icky. But as a consultant, as a founder, you have a solution to problems people have. So it's really important to know that sales, it doesn't start with you being pushy. Sorry, hold on my slide. Yeah. Is that you are responding to interest. You are solving a problem people have. So that's one thing. The other thing is that even if you haven't done any formal sales in your career to this point, I'm certain in your corporate job, you had to do some selling. You pitched an idea, you presented a solution, you defended a budget, and probably you persuaded your boss to give you a promotion. So all of that is convincing someone else to do something that is of benefit to you, and you're helping them out as well. So of course, there's the icky part of sales, that pricing, negotiation, asking for payments. Yes, I get it. But you're not doing this, you're not asking for charity. You are solving a problem, and you're being compensated for the value that you deliver. If you're an HR consultant, you're helping companies streamline their hiring process, improve their employee retention. If you're an IT consultant, you're helping the business owner sleep well at night because they know that they are not going to get hacked. If you are a financial advisor, you are looking after the long-term well-being of your client. So you are solving a real problem, and you're being compensated for the value that you are delivering. So that's one thing to keep in mind about sales. And the other thing that is that, sorry, I should make sure my slides are going. Yeah, there's something covering the Zoom thing is covering my slides. Okay, here you go. No, it's better. The other point here is that a mistake a lot of founders make is that you're not chasing everyone. And we'll talk about this later when we speak about the funnel. you are looking for those, what we call in marketing, the ICP, or ideal client profile, ICP, your ideal client profile, your avatar, you have a persona. You're not selling to the world. You are an HR consultant who can use AI to streamline the hiring process and the employee performance processes. And you come in and you work with mid-sized businesses and healthcare. That is a very specific niche you go after. So if you go and say, I'm an HR consultant, and I hear this a lot, and I have 15 years of experience and I have all these certifications, awesome. But you're not, when you sell to everyone, you're selling to no one. So it's really important to understand and document and research where who your client is, who your ideal client is, and initially niching down is a plus. And over time you can pivot, you can expand your niche, you can do other things, but initially look at the industries that you are familiar with, look at your skills, look at the solution that you offer, and where can it have the most impact. If you're used to working with Fortune 500 and you're very polished in your approach, in your slides, in your proposals, in your documentation, then that's a plus if you want to pursue selling to Fortune 500. But if you have zero background in working with, interacting with Fortune 500, that just, it's going to add a whole lot more steps, and the steeping the learning curve is going to be steeper. So keep that in mind as you're defining who you want to go after from a marketing perspective to capture leads. So that's one thing. The other thing here is that uh, is that from this is sort of marketing and sales, but what's really important is that at this early stage, if you're struggling with sales, or if you're trying to learn about sales, and you want to have some sort of metrics, some sort of key performance indicators, sales is a process, especially if you're selling to business, B2B. It's typically it's a longer sales cycle. But even if you're selling to consumers, very few things people just buy on the spot. It could be some urgent care or some specific services that people just buy very quickly because of the urgent need. But in general, there's a sales cycle. It could be a week or two, or it could be 9 months, depending. But the one thing I really want you to track, if you're serious about sales, is the number of conversations you'll be having every week. So this is for new consultants. This is for someone who's struggling, someone who's established, and they have a business already, and they know exactly who their clients are, and they know exactly what their service, what their offer is, but they're struggling in getting leads. So I would make sure there are many other ways to generate leads. But for those who are struggling, my strong POV is that you have to have conversations with real people. Now, if you happen to live in a place far away from your target market, from your audience, you might have to do things online. But in general, you want to be out there talking to people and listening to their pain points, to their desires, to their aspirations, to the issues that they're facing, to the problems that they have with the incumbent. All of those are things you can't get online. You can ask ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude all these questions. Everything I'm telling you, you can ask them, but we have to experience that. And that will help us. And that last point in my talk today about building that sales muscle, it comes from reps. It comes from doing things that are difficult. And if we don't have these conversations, then no conversations, there's no pipeline, there's no sales process, there are no deals, there's no revenue, there's no business. So in terms of generating leads, capturing leads, my recommendation is to always start with your warm network. People, I would say, people whom you've left a positive impression on. Ex-colleagues, ex-bosses, people who reported to you, suppliers, vendors, people in the industry, customers. Those people, they know you, they trust you, they know that you have a strong track record. So those are more likely to buy from you. And actually, depending on what stat you look at, but in my own experience as well, with all the founders I speak with, your first your first set of clients, it's going to come from your network in almost always. So if you're struggling with sales, go back to, or if you're just starting out, go to your LinkedIn profile, download, there's a setting in there, you can download all your network, all your connections, and then with their titles, and then see themselves, they can be the people you can talk to. And then, if you haven't reached out in a long time, obviously, connect, you're talking to people, you're not robots, at least not yet. And then let them know it's not a hard pitch, it's a conversation, it's we're catching up. Here's what I'm doing. And then you see, if let's say you're an HR consultant and you don't have anyone in HR in your network, I'm certain you have managers and directors and people in your network who are connected to HR managers or maybe to COOs, and they can make that warm introduction on your behalf. So that's one thing I would say, always start with your network and then gradually expand. Go attend events, go attend meetings, go attend, depending on, we're in the Bay Area. I'm assuming most of us here watching or listening to this later, we're in the Bay Area, but find events where your target audience are. Go to exhibits. Go and walk the exhibit floor, talk to all the vendors, go to happy hour. When we started out, we didn't have a whole lot of money. So we would go and buy the cheapest ticket to get us in, and then go and just have a goal. I want to speak with 20 people tonight. I want to come back to the office with 20 business cards. So, or these days you can do 20, LinkedIn connections. But that's the idea, is to be out there, and then your warm network, then expand to other like on LinkedIn or other people that that maybe you haven't connected with yet. Now, of course, I'm saying this. You can do cold email, cold outreach. You can do paid ads. You can do a lot of things. I'm not saying these are not adequate, or they're not solid lead generation tactics. They are, but initially, and if you're struggling with sales, that personal interaction, that hearing the rejection and not knowing what to do, that is very difficult. It's going to feel awkward. You're going to hate yourself, but don't. It's okay. It's part of the journey. Just like if you step on the mat, you come to our dojo in Sunnyvale, if you want to learn Aikido, we don't expect you to do these hard and high falls day one. We walk you step by step. Just like when you learn skiing. When we moved to California, went to Tahoe, right? Slow. You go on the bunny slopes, right? And they teach you how to stop first. So and then over time, right? You go and do double diamond, whatever. So same thing in sales. Learning, falling, and getting back up, and learning. When the first day we went out to sell, we had 5 rejections. I always tell this story. 5 rejections. It was awful. And it almost took us out. My business partner and I said, you know what? Maybe this is not meant for us. So the next day or the 2 days after that, we said, let's jot down, let's write down every objection we heard, every rejection. Like, what did they ask us? And we had no idea what to say. And we wrote down answers, and then we memorized those answers. And again, ironically, or fortunately, or it just happened because of, I don't know, the stars aligned, we ended up selling to a restaurant. The 5 rejections on that first day were from restaurants, right? So we learned a lot about that space. So back to my point here about expanding. And then again, don't worry about rejections. You have to learn from those rejections. Rejections are redirections, as they say. And then you have to be a walking billboard. If you are serious about growing your business, you have to be a walking billboard, not in an obnoxious way, everywhere you go. But I want to do everywhere you go, almost everywhere you go. I say I've done it at weddings, but I haven't done it at funerals, and I don't think I'll ever do it at funerals, not proper. But in almost every other situation, find an opportunity to update people about what you do, and that you're excited about it, and that you are passionate about it, and that you are a problem solver. That's all part of casting a wide net, so people know that you exist and that you offer this solution. So that is on lead capture. Again, don't get me wrong, there's 110 ways to get leads. But initially, my POV is you have to be out there, you have to network, you have to have those pitches, soft pitches, hard pitches. I have actually a bunch of videos on pitching, but it's think of, again, pitching might have a negative connotation in certain circumstances, but think of you having a conversation. These are conversation starters. I think it was Michael Porter who said this in one of his books. So you're starting a conversation and you're listening to the pain points of the person. You're not just speaking the whole time. You're asking some questions. They're telling you the issues they're having. Then you're telling them how you can help them. And then the goal of that conversation is not to sell, not to close the deal, but is to get that next step, which is potentially an invite to their offices so you can present to them something that is a bit more formal. So that is on lead capture. We can have an entire session on lead capture, but I'm giving you some highlights here. So let me pause before we go to lead nurturing and see if we have any questions, any comments from the folks with us on the call, on the webinar. Or Jordan, feel free to jump in. And
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. One of the things you mentioned was, start warm with your network. Um, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. So the first is, let's face it, a lot of people you network with are your friends, family, people that are close to you. Um, how do you walk the line between, kind of like, how do I put this? You're close to me, I'm your friend, your family, or you're a close colleague, and up to this point, I haven't really asked you to help me sell my business. Now I'm asking you to do that essentially. And so the reaction from them could be, or some of them could be, kind of like, oh, like you're using me for, to get ahead kind
right,
of
right, right. No,
mentality,
no.
right? How do you deal with that?
Right. Thank you. The very, very, very good point. And I believe in I have that video, that long video on how to start a consulting business, the ultimate guide, and I talk about this in details. But basically, I when I said download your LinkedIn list of connections, you have to do some segmentation. So there are people who are close friends who will bend over backward for you. Yo, Mike, help me out, right? There are few of those, maybe very few, right? Family members, of course, right? Daughters, sons, siblings, parents, they will just bend over backward for you. So that's one category, few probably. Then you have recent, like I say, if you're laid off, or if you're laid off, a lot of people want to help. I think if you're laid off, a lot of people have people who stayed in the company, or they know you're laid off. People just want to go out of their way to help. So I would say it is the way I did it is one time it was right before Christmas. So my partner and I went through that exercise that I'm telling you, and then we sent, hey, happy holidays. And by the way, I'd love to catch up with you early in the year. And we started this new business, right? Now, not that was our approach. Very happy holidays. Hope everything is going well. Personalized, not some random, generic email that we send through like eye contact. And we had some responses, and then we spoke with a few of them. Other people were busy. We'll catch up later. But it's a numbers game. Sales is a numbers game. We can learn how to be efficient and all that, and we can use actually AI, and we can use email sequencing, all of that, of course. But there is an aspect to it where it's a number. So not everybody you reach out to will reply. Not everybody would be ready, willing, and able to help. And even some people that very, very close to you, they just might be very busy, or some people are just, they are not good at they're not connectors, right? But you'll find a few who are. I remember one person I met, and he went with me. Like, he was just so helpful. I still, he's a great guy. He went with me to actually two people, one to a manufacturing company and one to a restaurant. And they were saying, this guy is smart, he started a business. They just made that introduction that I'm trustworthy, I'm reliable. And then I did the whole, so I just needed that introduction. But I can tell you, I mean, Jordan, not everybody will do this. Very few people will do that. But initially, you're not looking for 10 projects. Initially, you're looking for, a handful of leads. A few of them will be qualified, and maybe you close a deal, and then next month you'll close another one, and then that will get you some traction, and then you'll be more confident. Then you can do other things. But I would say there's the human aspect of it. You don't want to be obnoxious. You don't want to text people on a Sunday night. You don't want to harass people, like text message them, several. But I think it's okay to, and I have actually, I'll put a link if I find it quickly, or maybe after the webinar. I have actually sample outreach messages for warm contacts and one for cold contacts. So basically, the way I would do it. Hey, how's it going? Long time no talk. I'd love to connect with you. Here's what I'm doing. I'd love to know what you're doing. And then I would do another follow up, and I would leave it at that. And I would say, and I always say till this point, if this is not a good time, I totally understand. I know you're busy, or maybe you have other reasons. I want to make it the least awkward, the least inconvenient, the least. So I'm not the pushy type. Even the martial arts I took is more of a harmonious martial art. Very martial, but very, very harmonious. So now that's my approach: is you're in it for the long run. They might be just going through just tough time at work. They might be going through tough time at home. And I think part of it is also, if you've had a history of helping others, I think whatever your belief system is, whether it's universe, God, whatever, I think the universe has a way to reward you back. And if you haven't, I spoke with some younger folks, and they said, oh, we don't have a network. We haven't done a whole lot. Well, start building from now. Help out, volunteer, get to know. I think the more people see you that you are committed and have a good reputation and you're working hard, they're more likely to help. So that's my approach. But I do have actually sample messages. I can find them maybe after, and I can send it. Maybe we can email them to the folks who are attending.
That's great. Great answer. One other quick question I'll throw in
Sure, sure.
on a related theme is, in the olden days when I was in business school and they would sit us down for career counseling, which seemed like it was every other day. Um, they would say you have to network. And back in the day, this was in the mid 90s, you didn't have, the internet was just starting. You didn't have social media, you didn't have LinkedIn. So you had to network the old-fashioned way, which is you show up to a cocktail party, you have a couple of pigs in a blanket and a cocktail, and you schmooze for an hour, and you try to fight for everybody's attention, which was always really hard, by the way. Um, and then the revolution came, and now we're doing a lot of this online through LinkedIn and social media. So I think it took some of the bulk out of the effort needed to effectively network, but old school networking didn't go away. So anyway, where I'm going with my point, my question is, you can really overwhelm yourself with networking all the time, which takes time away from other things. Do you have any wisdom about how to spend your time strategically networking so you don't kill yourself with
Yeah.
a
So I
time
mean,
hog?
for someone who's just starting out, or they're struggling with sales, they have time on their hands, right? They're not busy delivering, right? So it's a numbers game. You gotta be out there. And I remember, like, to your point, networking, there's just a whole lot of opportunities that you might not be aware of. Like, for example, I remember Marvin, that sales coach, said, hey, Feras, go to any local events that you can find. And I found their BNI events, their like Chamber of Commerce events. I found um, some of the specialized Chamber of Commerce. They had their own things. There was one that had a 7 a.m. Networking breakfast, and I get up early, but I don't eat early. So I said, "Oh my goodness!" So I go there. I swear to God, I go there the first time, and I think I arrived a bit late, so I didn't hear the whole like etiquette of like what to do and what to say, and we have this round table, and everybody like would say, "Here's what I do, and here's how I can help," and I'm telling you, it was nerve wracking for me to just be in front of strangers and tell them about what I do. And I'm like, I think they sensed it that I'm nervous. I say, I'm just starting this business. So I had to overcome that fear of I'm comfortable speaking in public, but not in that context where the eyes are on me about something that I just started. And I'm not confident I can deliver because we haven't built 20 websites yet, right? So I went to these events religiously, this breakfast thing every 2 weeks. And we ended up getting two clients. One is called Duran Capital. Mr. Duran, he was the owner, and he took a bet on me, and taught me a couple actually business lessons. And but he wanted to support young in business. He wanted to support new business owners, and he gave me a project, and we had recurring revenue with that project. And then another great guy friend, Servando, an attorney, he introduced me to his partner in his legal firm in San Jose, and we sold them a $6,000 project at the time. So it didn't happen overnight. I think Jordan, going to you have to find time to meet people. If you let's say you specialize in, pick one. Let's say you're looking into. I mean, I don't use AI examples because there are gazillion of them. But let's say you're into manufacturing, and you're into automation and process efficiency improvements and supply chain and change management, all that good stuff. Obviously, AI can help a lot in this area. So are there local meetups? Are there mini conferences? Is there an association that has a conference in Sacramento that I can go to? So find, like, if you identified your client profile, your ICP, and look, where are these people aggregate? Where are they congregating? And then put it on your calendar to go and meet with them and network with them. And if you're doing something a bit more broad or not as niche, there'll be more opportunities. But it is, to me, networking is not just because not just there only positive things come out of networking, because potentially you find leads, you find potential future employees, potential investors. You get to practice your conversation starters. You get to hear, you might see competitors. You might see a competitor who works with Fortune 500, and you're working with the SMB, and when they get leads, they're looking for a partner to send those small leads to. So there's a lot of great, and then the most important thing is that you build that muscle of being out there. And then if you're the type, and I read earlier this year or late last year about I'm into like to read about psychology. My wife is a social worker, so we talk about some of this stuff. And yeah, she has a list of things for me to work on and improve over the years. but about the anxious mind, and we some of us are just terrified at the idea of going out there and presenting, or even just starting a conversation with a stranger. So you have to, in psychology, they talk about in this book, they talk about this gradual desensitization, gradual exposure to things that you fear, or you can do it the cold turkey way. Just do it through flooding. That's what they call it. So that's what it's called. So you can just go and just throw yourself into a huge networking event. Or if you like to do the gradual approach. So maybe you go to a very, very small event and you just listen. And next time you start to approach someone, and next time you maybe present at that event. So that is all part of getting, I don't want to say get the fear, the anxiety, the fear is always there. Like they say, courage is not the absence of fear, it is managing that fear. And the same thing, trust me, even if, we used to go and travel and pitch these like top brands here and abroad. And we would put tens of hours, this is later, like in preparation for these pitches, and still get nervous. But then you've done it so many times that when it's time to perform, you'll do fine. So even on lack of sleep. So I'm not recommending you do that, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But you do it so many times, it becomes more of a second nature. And at one point, even for those of you who are not in sales, it will be enjoyable because you are helping someone solve a problem. And then this joy and this feeling of, yes, I sold something, that I was able to do it, and I closed this deal. Now I'm going to deliver, and then I'm going to grow this account, and I'm going to grow my business. I'm going to take care of my employees, and I'm going to make more money. Like all these things happen, which makes it to me cool. Like I want to do it. I want to do it now. I want to, it's like more of an exciting thing, as opposed initially when I started, oh my God, I have to pitch to this guy. So here's those are some thoughts.
Very nice. Thank you.
Sure. So the second part of today's presentation is lead nurturing. So just because we got a lead It doesn't mean that they're ready to buy the next day. No matter what this, again, there's specific services. Again, I had we had a little squirrel in the roof, in the attic last year. Called online, got someone the same night. Okay, we got to take care of that thing, right? So those services like emergency services, you don't have time to negotiate and look for others, and you got to get the stuff done right away. But for most professional services, for most B2B services, there's a sales cycle, and we'll talk about it when I cover the funnel in the next section. But leads, there's this concept of lead nurturing, and you can think of it as educating the lead about what how you solve their problem. You're also learning about their issues, and you're also building trust over time. So again, the goal initially is not to get a signed contract. This is, of course, this is the objective. I want to close that deal. I want to sign that contract signed. But you are learning, you are building trust, you are understanding how they buy, you're understanding like what concerns they have about you. People buy in different ways. There's this book I read many, many years ago called Waiting for Your Cat to Bark, by a good friend of mine. On digital marketing, how you can sort of narrow cast and narrow pitch, and he talks about, I think he took the Myers-Briggs and simplified it for those of us who are not into psychology, and he talked about how different people buy. Some people are very rational and they're left brain and they want to see thing in a certain way. Some people are more emotional and they want to sort of get a feel that you're the person they can trust. So that is nurturing. The lead is taking, I don't want to say, like you want to walk with the lead to where you want them to go. And you have to, the way I think about it is that trust is built by you care. You want to solve that problem. People sense that. Trust me. Even if you're awkward in these conversations and you're nervous, if you're sincere that you really want to help and you're attentively listening, you're actively listening to the client and their whole list of things you can do to be actively, repeat what they're saying, take notes, summarize, make sure you're not interrupting, let them finish, don't just jump into pitching your solution. So, and again, this comes with experience. You can learn about it on my YouTube channel, on other channels. You can write books, you can read books about it, you can attend formal sales training on it, but you have to experience it. You have to be out there. You have to step on the mat. And I think part of that nurturing and building that trust is that it's sort of a balance between authority and empathy. So authority is, it's not to boast and come across professorial. Let me tell you, I'm the consultant. I know exactly your issue and I can tell you how to fix it. No, you want to establish credibility by sharing how you've solved similar problems, share some case studies, the logos you have, the clients maybe that you've done work with in the past, so that the certifications you have in that industry, all of those will help you establish authority. You're providing value. You're helping. You're always educating. You're always helping. A lot of clients, depending on the stats, again, you're 60-70%. They do a lot of the homework, a lot of the research before they come to you in a B2B setup. So in a B2B setting. So if you're adding value in every interaction with the client, you're building that trust and you're building that authority. And then the listening part and acknowledging the issues and showing that you really understand what they're going through, that helps a lot in building the trust. And of course, you want to avoid, creation. You don't want to create friction, and that typically happens when we're a bit pushy, when we are ignoring the signals. Like I'll give you an example. Like I had this unsolicited pitch on email from someone who's done a great work. They almost built a website, I think using one of the AI tools, but it was a very, very tailored pitch for our business in one area. And they had a personalized video saying, this is what what we can do for you. I did some research. I looked at your competitors, and here's my process, and here's how I can help you, and here's how. I mean, it was really well done. And I replied back to them, and by the way, I read every email I get, um, all that spam, not like junky stuff, but I read it because I want to learn from how people are pitching. So I sent this person. I don't know this person. I sent him a very nice email saying basically, this is great. I'm very impressed. I appreciate the time you put into it. At this time, we are working with someone else. Get back to me by the end of Q1. This was, I think, in December. So what did this guy? I just praised the guy. I just acknowledged what they've done, and I said, I'm really busy now, and I'm working with someone else. The contract ends in March. Get back to me then. He replies, pushing back, wanting to meet. Again, this is a bad sales tactic. I want to get someone on the phone so I can close them because I'm so good at closing, right? So he created friction, he or she, I wasn't sure from the name, and they created friction, and I just said, I didn't even reply to them. So you have, again, some of this stuff is you don't learn it day one. You might push a bit, and you'll hear silence, or they'll tell you. You might find yourself that I didn't take any notes about their issues because you were busy just showing off how well you know this space and all the certifications and how great of a consultant you are. So you wanna build trust, and you want to avoid friction. Think of it again. Analogies include if you are about to go on a date, like certain things you don't talk about. You don't say, "Hey, I'm ready to get married" on the first date. It just, you can say that, but I don't think it will have the intended result you want. So same thing, sales is about relationships. It's about trust, is about understanding the other person, and then building on that. On lead nurturing, I want to cover a couple of things. Depending on what your audience, who your audience is, if you're selling to SMB, and I'm lumping small and sized businesses together, SMB. It's really a continuum, but I'll give you sort of the two extremes here, or the two endpoints of this continuum. Or continuum, are there endpoints with continuums? No, continuum. Okay, the two sides of it. All right. So uh, if you're selling to the smaller businesses, typically, from my experience, also from research on HubSpot, typically a sales cycle is 2 to 8 weeks. And here you're connecting typically with the business owner or maybe one of their family members, and there's a lot of emotion, and they move quickly relative to the enterprise. And they look you in the eye, and they believe in you, and trust is a big factor in selling to small businesses. And typically, again, it's personal, it's faster, and it's direct. Now, on the other side, enterprise, the sales cycle is anywhere from 3 months to 9 months. I've had sales cycles, especially when we were working with like Fortune 50 and also the government, especially the government. You're talking about 12 plus months. So, and by the way, if you're looking to define your target audience, there's a thing that I covered in a recent video, actually a video that I launched this morning on a 10-point validator for your business idea. And one of those points, you get a peek preview, is that speed to revenue, speed to that first dollar. So if you're tight on cash and you don't have a long runway, financial runway, you want to look at an industry, at an audience where you can sell quickly and deliver and collect quickly. But that's just a side note. But sales processes, sales cycles for the enterprise is long, so keep that in mind. And then you're not selling to the business owner. There's a buying committee. There's the person. Let's say you sell marketing services. Let's say you do the latest and greatest SEO, search engine optimization. So AE, or answer engine optimization, right? AI, the impact of AI on search. So you're speaking with a director of marketing. They're impressed. They love you. They say, "Hey, Mary, hey, Mike, we're ready to move." Now, if this were a small business owner, they say, "We're ready to move, send the proposal, you close it, you're done." If this is an enterprise, this director of marketing has to sell you and your proposal to their boss and potentially their boss's boss. They have to go and get procurement on board. They have to get legal on board. And before all of that, they have to get their CFO or finance on board. Yeah, we have the money to spend this quarter. So selling to bigger companies, you have to think of all these steps. And if they're not getting back to you, it's not because they're ignoring you. It just they're waiting on this buying committee to give the go ahead. So follow up, not every day, not twice a day, not texting at 8 p.m., but maybe once every week, once every couple of weeks, and always follow up with something of value. Don't just say, hey, Mr. Director of Marketing, what's up with that proposal? Hey, are you ready to buy? No, no, no. You have to always show them an industry report, a competitor research, something new that you've developed, a template, a checklist, a custom GPT, something that is of perceived value to them. Make sure that is included in your follow-up. So that is, and then the trust there, it's not, and this is called in the sales speak, they talk about multi-threading, meaning you have, if you read some articles on HubSpot and others, where you have to really sell to different departments, and either you or your main point of contact, they have to sell your proposal and your solution to everyone else in the company that is involved. So, and I lost deals. I learned this the hard way. I lost deals on going in and pitching in person and not reading your room. We ignored, not on purpose, but there was one person there who we didn't think was involved at all in this discussion, and we did not proactively engage them to understand what department they represent and what is it that they're looking for from our solution. And I was given all my attention to the VP, and I should give a lot of attention to the most senior person, but I shouldn't ignore everyone else in the room. And this person had a specific requirement that we did not include in our proposal because I did not proactively engage them. And then they ended up going with a competitor that addressed the needs of all stakeholders, including this quiet person in the back. So you learn the hard way that you have to understand, be aware of all those in the decision-making process. So that leads us to the part on sales funnels. And I have here on the screen, and this is the third section, this sales funnel. Well, there's a marketing funnel, there's a sales funnel, and there's also the growth funnel. And one big disclaimer here. If you go online, you'll see gazillion types of funnels. And you'll have flywheels, and you'll have frameworks, and you'll have a funnel with 10 steps and a funnel with 7 steps. It really doesn't matter. I think what's important is that the stages that a buyer goes through are important for you to understand. And whether you end up using a 7-step or my 5-step, it really doesn't matter, but because the concepts are really the same. It's just like in football, you got to go to the end zone, and you might do it in a couple of runs and 1 throw, or you might do it in 10 throws, or you might have to do like 7 different ways, right? Or there's unlimited ways of going from point A to point B. Same thing in here, but the concept are you're moving the deal forward. You're walking with the lead toward the objective. So that's a couple. Before I go into each of the phases, as I said, the stages always exist, and then there are different type of funnels or approaches to the sales process that you see online. They're really, people try to kind of make it unique and their own thing unique and different, and the funnels are outdated. Yes, nothing in life is linear. No sales is very linear. Life is more complex than just a straight line. But this way to think of sales is helpful to me, and I think it's been helpful to a lot of the founders that I work with. So keep that in mind, these disclaimers. But the goal is to move the leads forward. Don't let them stall. Now, what happens? Like a lot of times, people like I send the proposal and the client said no, and I lost the deal at this very last part of the funnel. Typically, you've went off earlier in the process. The proposal did not address all the pain points. You did not get the buying committee on board, or some other reasons. But that's something to keep in mind. So what happens in every stage here? So this awareness, those are the 5 steps. There's interest. Someone comes to your website, they like what they see, they send you an email. They're interested, right? You start to speak with them. You're also qualifying them. You're making sure they're a good fit for what you do. So that's that awareness. They're learning more about you, and you're learning about them. And then it's sort of the next step is education, right? So that's you're deepening that knowledge. You're getting more. They're getting more aware about what you offer. They're now starting to talk about the scope of work and the way you approach the project. Is it phases? Is it one time? They want to know about how you're pricing. They want to know if you've done work for people in their industry, the companies their size. All of that is between this awareness and education. And again, it's both ways. And I want to have a side note here. Over time, you want to qualify the leads. As they're qualifying you, you want to qualify the leads to make sure they're a good fit for you. Initially, if you're just starting out, get the sale. Worry about these other things later, because I want you to practice how to pitch, how to negotiate, how to close the deal, how to deliver the project. These are muscles you're building, and then you can improve on that later. So that's awareness, education. Next is evaluation. Typically, once the client has a good understanding of what you offer, and they like you, and they think your solution is a good fit for them, and they're in the same price, in the same ballpark from a pricing perspective, they're typically evaluating other competitors, or they might have an incumbent who's doing the work that you would be doing, or they might be evaluating if they want to do this work in-house. So instead of hiring you as this amazing SEO consultant, they might want to hire a consultant. So be aware that in this phase, there's a whole lot of evaluation. And the more homework and the more trust you build early on and throughout this process, the more you get to know about all of the stuff I mentioned, like all these things that go into making a decision about whether they're evaluating with 3 other competitors or just one, or maybe you're the only person, but they're evaluating you against something they do internally. All of these are good things to learn, so that when you are presenting to them or to their bosses, or you're sending a slide deck or sending a formal proposal, you're addressing what they're looking for, and you know exactly how the decisions will be made. So that is, and sometimes they like you and everything, but they're evaluating their readiness to start the project now. And this is another thing, timing. In martial arts, as Jordan knows, timing is everything. Timing. That's the founder of Aikido said once. Because if someone is coming at you in an Aikido scenario, you want to deflect, you want to get out of the way, you want to pivot and let them continue on their journey, and maybe assist them, introduce them to the mat gently. But if your timing is off, you move before they're going to crush you, or you move too late, they're very solid, you can move them. You can apply this other analogies, but the idea here, timing is really important. So at times, the client, they love you. The pricing is fine. The scope of work is excellent. The timeline is perfect, but they don't have anyone internally ready for you to be your main point of contact and to take on this project. So that's why you want to have a pipeline. You want to have a lot of leads. You want to have leads in different stages, because not every lead, even everything is perfect, including your pitch, the client might not be ready to buy at this stage. So don't put all the eggs in one basket. You want to make sure you have more leads. You want to have more leads nurtured in throughout this process. So if one drops off for whatever reason, you have others in the process. And then, of course, their negotiation is part of this, and you'll learn it. Some clients like to haggle, others don't like to haggle. How to price and the payment terms and all that. I have a full video on the ultimate guide to pricing for consultants. So whether hourly, project-based, performance-based, value-based, there are different ways. Initially, my recommendation for new consultants or those who are struggling, go with hourly. Go with hourly. There are pros and cons, but it's the most optimal, I think, for people who are struggling with sales. But that negotiation sometimes They want to get more training out of you. They want to get more sessions of X, Y, or Z. So there are different things that people negotiate, not just pricing. And last but not least, you got to get this contract signed, and you have to, and then you collect payment. And a verbal yes, a handshake is not a deal yet. Don't celebrate till the contract is signed and the check is on the way. And two quick pro tips here: make it easy for people to pay you. Make all these options available, including crypto, including whatever the case might be. Just have people, don't go cheap. Say, I don't want to pay that 2% or that 3% charge to the credit card company. So I want to get everything by check or by ACH or by wire. You could lose deals. I've lost deals because I had that mindset. And then one sales coach said, give them all the payment options. Make it easy for them to pay you. Once they pay you, then you're serious. You know, they're serious. So those are the 5 stages. And I think I have a couple more slides, and then we'll wrap it up here, and then we can have some Q&A if we still have time. Good on time. So the last point here, or the last couple of minutes here, is on the sales, the mindset shift, and I think that's really important. And I'm not talking about positive thinking and sitting at home and visualize. Yeah, it's visualizing success is important, but it's about doing the work, and it's about really building those muscles, as I've been saying throughout. So I want to, as I said earlier, don't think of yourself as a salesperson, whatever that means culturally, and all the negativity around that and the negative connotation around I'm a salesperson. No, you are a consultant, you are a founder, you are a problem solver. And then you are having these conversations to understand the problems so you can solve them. And in these, and I have some stats from the website Gong, I believe, yeah, Gong, yeah. They said in these conversations, as I said earlier, it's really important to be an active listener. And they said top performers, they speak 40% of the time, and they listen 60% of the time. And then those who are not performing well, they do the opposite. So in these conversations, go into these conversations with questions, and then as you ask questions, wait for the answers, take notes, dig deeper, summarize, listen to the problem, understand who the decision makers are, understand the timeline. All of that will put you in a better position to know when to send the proposal, when to follow up, what information they need. The client, the lead, your main point of contact needs to help sell you internally. So that's on the mindset. And then the next slide here is on the reps, which I've said a lot this on this call, but it is really important. It's really the confidence that we establish, the confidence that we built in whatever art we do, remember riding the bike for the first time. Remember jumping in the pool with someone or by yourself to learn how to swim, driving. Sales and business is exactly the same. Repetition will, they say practice makes perfect. Actually, deliberate practice makes perfect. So it's not about personality. This person is born. She is an amazing saleswoman. Oh, he's an amazing salesman. No, I'm certain some of us have maybe different qualities or are more maybe out there and they're more of an extrovert and others are not. But all those traits, all those characteristics that make someone a great salesperson, they're learnable. You can learn them, you can apply them, and you can improve on them by practicing and doing the reps. And keep in mind that sales is a numbers thing. You're not going to close every deal. You might have this many conversations. Let's say your close rate is at 10%. So if you have 10 conversations, maybe half would be 20, then 10 would be qualified. Of those 10, maybe 5 would be ready to receive a proposal, and then you end up negotiating with 2 or 3, and then 1 will buy from you or 2 would buy from you. So that is normal. And I remember when I started, my win rate was 1 of 20. Like if I spoke with 20 people and I sent 20 proposals, I would only close 1. And that was awful. That was horrific. That was terrible. But that's just what it took for me to learn. It could have been something on my part that I was just not doing the right things, and also clients were not ready. But over time, by the time we sold the business and we got to eight figures, we were closing at 33%, almost one out of every three qualified leads that we got. So that is one thing. And then I'll end with this story. Just some of you might be getting rejections or fear of rejection and fear of objections. But I remember after one of those sales courses, the coach said, "Hey, Ferris, when you go to sell, you have to learn a lot about the business and the client. So here's a list of 27 or 30, I don't know, 37 questions. Get all these answered, and then you'll be in a very strong position to close that deal." So I go to this meeting, a company, and I meet with the COO or director of operations, and it was right after lunch, around like 1:30 on a hot day. So he's sitting there across the table. I'm sitting here, and I said, "Hey, Mike, I'd love to know more about your business, about your clients, to help make sure my solution is tailored for your business." He said, "Of course." So I started asking that first question, the second question, the third question. I'm busy taking notes. And then like his answers were getting slower and slower. And then I, I look up and the guy was snoozing off. I put the lead to sleep. So did not get that deal. But I learned that I have to capture all that information, but not by interrogating my lead, right? You have to learn. But if I hadn't gone through that experience, I mean, it's funny now. I laugh about it. It was awful. It was awful at the time. I felt terrible. I didn't get the deal, but I felt terrible. I put this guy to sleep, and my business partner made fun of me for like many years after that. So, but you got to do it. It's a muscle, and it's not. I mean, some of us might be more talented, than others. Some of us in the martial. I know when I got into Aikido, I asked the sensei, the trainer, the coach, and he said, I said, "How long does it take to get to a black belt?" He said, "Well, it could be 3 to 4 years. It could be 2 to 3 years, depending on a number of factors. But if you work and you train hard 3 times a week at least, then you'll get there." And so some of us might have more talent, more skills, more resources. Others might not. But if you do the reps, if you learn and apply, that's learning is education and application. You will have a much higher chance of succeeding, of building this dream company that you want to build. So um, you understand the funnel, you understand the sales structure, and that we have to nurture leads. We talked about having those conversations. How many conversations a week? That's your homework. Set a target, and then that discipline, that working day in, day out, and learning from what we're doing. So that is it. AI. We didn't talk about AI a lot, but we should use AI intelligently. We use the system, the processes, but don't use it blindly. Don't just get stuff out of GPT and put it into proposal. I use AI all the time, and in a video I produced on writing proposals, I have a custom GPT to help you produce proposals using AI. So I have an AI assistant, but you have to put your thoughts, you have to include your personal experiences. You have to include your POV, your POVs in this, and make it personalized. Don't just grab something. Don't be lazy with AI. I think that's an issue that I'm seeing. But other than that, that is it for tonight. So I think we might have gone over it a little bit. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We have a few minutes for questions, if there's any. While people are possibly thinking of some questions, I'll throw out a comment that I would use as a follow-up to the whole point. Excuse me, the whole point you kept making about the talk to listen ratio. What I find when I deal with salespeople is they don't follow your advice. They talk too much. They don't listen enough. Or the other problem is, yeah, you can ask too many questions where, it sounds like you're in an inquisition. And are they ever going to stop it? What do they want to know next? My blood type and my personal habits, right? Um, So my comment is, or comment slash question, or the wisdom I'm seeking here is people have just a natural tendency because they want to tell you everything about their product, right, and their company and why they're so great and why they're so great for you, how we're going to solve your problems, and so they feel like they're not earning their money or their salary or their commission if they don't lay it all out on the line. So, what's the wisdom about how does one hold oneself back from having diarrhea of the mouth? Excuse the
Yeah,
horrible analogy.
no. I think I did a live stream a few weeks ago and I talked about active listening. I think it's training. Like if you find yourself, if leads, so you have to measure all this, right? So first, how many conversations per week? That's one of the KPIs. Now, if I'm having these conversations and I'm meeting people, I'm exchanging contact information, and I'm having the next step, a meeting or a phone call or a Zoom call, and then I'm not getting the response that I expect, you have to evaluate. And then if it is, and then maybe you can record yourself, especially if you're using Gemini like or Zoom, you can get the transcript of the call and run it against this benchmark. Am I talking more? Am I talking less? And it's really that practice. I think it's helpful. I've been married, fortunately, I have an amazing spouse. Been married for 38 years now. So I learned. Both of us we've learned a lot of things that we used to fight about, argue about early on in our relationship. Right? You learn by feedback from those around you, and I think like genuinely, I want to understand the problem, and then with some leading questions, and then I think summarizing, repeating, not robotically, but just summarizing what is that what I heard, and fighting that urge to just speak. I know you have skills, I know you have capabilities, I know you want to impress, but it is that listening, summarizing, asking more questions. Don't like have an agenda. You do have an agenda you want to sell, but like you're not there just to close on that moment. Like you don't want to pressure. Like I think especially in a B2B setting, like you want to build. Sales is about relationship. Sales is about building that trust. You might be very eager, you want to get that proposal out, but if you haven't listened in and understood all that's involved, then you're sending the proposal prematurely, and then your win rate is going to be much lower. So it's really learning, like learning these active listening skills and fighting the urge of this. I want to. I'm eager to kind of share everything I know, because just people it won't resonate well with people.
Okay. Any questions come through? I'm not seeing any. How can folks learn more from you? Tell us about your service and your videos, etc.
Yeah, I think yeah, you can follow the channel. All free content available at Startup with Ferris, and you can, if you are on mobile, you can use the QR code there, or just go to at Startup with Ferris and follow. And I publish a video every couple of weeks, and then I do live streams every week on Tuesdays at noon Pacific. So, and those I cover a business topic, and then I answer questions. So if you have a specific question, you can join the live stream and happy to answer. And then you can also, on the next QR code here is for my website for the newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter we send out on Saturday. So happy to connect and help you overcome the fear and the concern of selling. And it's really not about motivation. It's about a system, a process which now you have been exposed to, and then the reps to execute on it.
Right. And like you said, that momentum is so important. Starting the momentum, keeping momentum, because the body in motion stays in motion, as the physicists tell us, right? So
Yep.
that's starting up for you. Okay. Well, this has been once again an informative session. The recording will be up probably in about a week's time on our website. We want to thank Ferris for being with us tonight and illuminating us on Sales Funnel, the second in his two-part series. And we, of course, invite you back for whatever the next installment's going to be. You'll see some messages go out, and you'll see some postings on the microsite about what's coming up. So thanks for being with us again tonight, and wish you a great rest of the week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Gordon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.